As we are a week away from the spring game for the Oklahoma Sooners, listen, I'm excited to see exactly what kind of shuffle we're going to see on the defensive line, who's going to potentially start, who's going to show out, who needs to have a big spring game. And we're going to talk about it today, but I definitely want to hear from you guys as well. So go ahead, jump down the comments below. Let me know what you all are thinking. Who do you think has to have a really big spring or a big spring game? Hey guys, I'm a little nasally today. I'm not gonna lie, a little backed up. So forgive me if I have to take a second to cough or do whatever. But we're gonna knock this video out because this is something interesting that I think we all want to talk about. So go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button. But let's look at the defensive line for the University of Oklahoma. Because last year, if you were an Oklahoma Sooner fan, you definitely expected the defensive line to be a little better. And I don't know if you got exactly what you wanted last year. But in all defense, it was Brent Venable's first year. So for the players, you're having to learn an all new defense, which is not easy. And you're having to adjust to a new strength and conditioning coach, which is not easy. I expect the defensive line to be better in the year of 2023 because, well, a lot of these players are going to have year 2 of the Schmitty program. And generally, wherever we see Jerry Schmidt go, it usually takes about the second year to really get it with those players on the strength and conditioning side. But who could we potentially be looking at as big players on the interior defensive line? Is it a guy like Jonah Laulu, who they're shifting to the interior? Could it be a Trace Ford? Could it be a Marcus Stripling, which you might be going, Marcus Stripling? Yeah, Marcus Stripling is moving from the offensive line to the defensive line, the position he thought he was going to play when he came to the University of Oklahoma. Anyways, you've got Kevin Gilliam Jr., Jacob Lacey, Ashton Sanders, Grayson Halton, Marcus Hicks. You have the one and only Devon Sears, who I think a lot of you guys were not like super excited about, but I think a lot of you guys need to be paying attention to Devon Sears. Additionally, you have Isaiah Coe returning. Isaiah Coe was, I think, a guy that was really starting to heat up towards the end of the year. You got Jordan Kelly. There are a lot of options for the Oklahoma Sooners when it comes to the interior defensive line. But one name that I don't think is being thrown out enough is the 4-star defensive lineman that Oklahoma got in the 2023 class, Derrick LeBlanc, the 6'4", 4.5. I think he's at about 285, if I remember correctly, and it looks like a good, strong 285. Out of Kissimmee, Florida. He chose Oklahoma over Penn State and Florida, so this is a big battle that Oklahoma ended up winning. Fans were excited about, and for good reason, because Derrick LeBlanc is a guy that, for a lot of programs, potentially could have came in and been a year 1 Power 5 starter. He has the ability to move quickly. He's pretty proactive on the field, and he's effective with his hands and his feet. This is a guy that I think could be a top 3 round draft pick if he has a stellar career at the University of Oklahoma. And I don't think he'll need more than 3 years. But you look at his stats in 2020, 65 tackles, 17 tackles for loss, 15 sacks, 1 forced fumble. So Derrick LeBlanc is that dude, and I expect that he will get playing time not only in the spring, but definitely this year as well. But I look around and I see Jonah Laulu, a guy that had played the edge for the University of Oklahoma and Hawaii. They move him inside where, maybe it just feels a little more natural. In 2022, he only had 6 solo tackles. He had 20 total tackles, but 6 solos, 1.5 sacks, and 1 interception for 26 yards, though. That one was exciting. But in 2021, he had 33 total tackles, 21 solos, 4 sacks, 1 fumble recovery. So that is the Jonah Laulu that everybody wants to see. And I think the Jonah Laulu that we can see by moving him to the interior defensive line. So you have to keep an eye at maybe whose job could Jonah potentially take, or is he going to be a really good substitute piece for maybe a starter? Because, well, these defensive linemen, sometimes they're going to have to be swapped out because when you're going up against some high-powered offenses, yeah, your guys are going to get tired. But I look at some other guys like Devon Sears, who a lot of people were like, not a lot of production, but I really like his size 6'3, 290 pounds, 300 pounds, 8 solo tackles, 15 total tackles, 3.5 sacks. There 3.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack. So again, a guy that I think could produce a lot for the Oklahoma Sooners in 2023. Maybe not as a starter, but definitely going to be a guy that can make an impact as a rotational player for the University of Oklahoma. But I look at a transfer like maybe Trace Ford from Oklahoma State University, from my alma mater here in Edmond, Oklahoma, at Edmond Santa Fe. In his career with Oklahoma State, had 41 total tackles, 41 solo tackles, 18 assists, so 59 total, 11 and a half tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, 1 interception. And listen, again, what we're talking about here is tackles for loss. As a interior defensive lineman, Trace Ford could definitely make an impact at that position. You might say, well, why not edge? We're going to get to that here in just a second. But I look at a guy like Jacob Lacey, another transfer. This one from Notre Dame, only not producing a whole lot. I think in his career, I think he totaled up just about at 40 total tackles. If I had my math right, it might be a little off, maybe 30 total tackles. But a guy that has 2.5 sacks, again, not the most production at Notre Dame, but maybe a guy at 6'1", 280 pounds that could really succeed in the Oklahoma Sooners offense. But when you're looking at a guy that could play nose tackle, Isaiah Coe, Ashton Sanders, Marcus Strong, those are your guys. I think those are the guys that you could potentially see swap out of the position, guys that could really blossom and star there. But what about the edge rusher? Or defensive end, whatever you want to call it, because I know someone's going to get in the comments and gripe about how we didn't say it right. What could happen at that position? Because you have transfer Rondell Bothroyd in from Wake Forest, who at Wake Forest put up a stellar career. 68 solo tackles, 136 total tackles, 31 tackles for loss, 15.5 sacks. Really, this is a guy that he just needs to get a little bit more film on him, and this could be a day 2 or 3 pick. I don't see him going day 1, but maybe if he has a big senior season here at the University of Oklahoma, maybe that happens for him. What about Ethan Downs, a guy that gets a lot of criticism around the program, but a guy that I was high on last year and a lot of you were as well, because he's only had 27 total tackles and 52 total tackles, but he has 16.5 tackles for loss and 5 sacks. So a guy that knows how to get people in the backfield, get to the quarterback. Ethan Downs has to have a big spring, has to have a big summer, but I think Ethan Downs is, again, a guy that's going to be a great role player on this team, definitely be a leader on the team. I like Reggie Grimes. I know Reggie Grimes kind of disappeared last season. There were some things going on there, things we're not going to get into, but 25 solo tackles in his career, 41 total tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 7 coming last season, and 7.5 sacks where he got 4.5. And if you guys remember, pretty much 2 games. Reggie Grimes can be an absolute force for the Oklahoma Sooners. And I think, again, a guy that has to have a big spring, big summer. I don't think the edge position is too much of a spot where you're like, I have to be the starter, because you're going to be rotated in depending on the team that you're playing. You might get more playing time than another guy. But what about the freshman, the true freshman, PJ Adebawore? Because I'm not going to lie, you guys are really excited about him. And if this is a guy that doesn't play a snap of football at the University of Oklahoma in his true freshman year, I think a lot of you guys are going to be excited, because a 5-star edge rusher out of Kansas City, Missouri, coming to the University of Oklahoma with that impressive 7-foot wingspan and 10-inch hand size, yeah, you want to see that guy in the field because he's got the long reach. He should be able to get to the quarterback. It's going to be interesting to see exactly where PJ Adebawore is going to fit, how many games he will play this season. I think it's something we all need to keep our eye on. But lastly, but not least, you got R. Mason Thomas. So R. Mason Thomas, a guy on the edge that looked promising last year. What kind of offseason is he going to have? We're just going to have to wait and see. Other interior guys that I totally didn't mention, but guys that are definitely going to be in the running, causing problems, trying to earn a spot. You've got Corey Robertson. You've got Jordan Kelly, Grayson Halton, Evan Jackson, Hayden Bray, and more. So when I look at the Oklahoma Sooners defensive line, I look at it and go, they're going to be okay. It's interesting. It's going to be fun. And I think it's something a lot of OU fans are going to be paying attention to during the football season. But guys, if you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know what you guys are thinking down in the comments below. What player do you think needs to have the biggest breakout season for the Oklahoma Sooners in 2023?